The courtroom stayed silent long after Daniel Freddy spoke. No one moved, no one even whispered. The judge sat frozen, fingers pressed together. Margaret Bells stared at Freddy like she was seeing a stranger for the first time. And across the room, Clark Maine didn't blink, not once. Freddy slowly sat back down, calm, too calm, as if the weight of everything had already left him. The judge cleared his throat. "Mr. Freddy," he said carefully, "if you know who committed this crime." He paused. "This court expects an answer." Freddy looked up, then toward Maine. Again, and for the first time all morning, Maine looked nervous, barely noticeable, just a twitch in his jaw, a tightening of the fingers, gone almost immediately. But Freddy saw it. So did Margaret. "Freddy," she whispered quietly, "what are you doing?" Freddy didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his briefcase, slowly, carefully. The courtroom stiffened. Even the bailiff stepped forward slightly. Freddy pulled out a folder, thin, black, unmarked. He placed it on the desk, but didn't open it. Margaret frowned. "What's in that?" Freddy looked at the folder for a long moment, then said something strange. "Insurance." Maine shifted in his seat. The judge adjusted his glasses. "Mr. Freddy," he said firmly, "I'll ask one last time. Who forged the documents?" Freddy smiled again, that same unsettling smile, the kind that made people uncomfortable, the kind that suggested he knew something everyone else didn't. And then he looked directly at Maine. "You tell me." The courtroom shifted instantly. Heads turned, eyes moved. Every face landed on Clark Maine. Maine laughed, too quickly, too loudly. "This is ridiculous," he said. "He's desperate." But Freddy didn't look angry, didn't even react. Instead, he said quietly, "You were in the office." Silence. Margaret's eyes widened. The judge leaned forward. Freddy continued. "The login, the hidden authorization system, the timestamps." Maine crossed his arms. "You can't prove anything." Freddy nodded slowly. "You're right." A pause. "Not legally." Something changed in Maine's expression, only for a second, but enough. The confidence cracked. Freddy leaned back, and for the first time, he looked tired. "See," Freddy said quietly, "the problem isn't what you stole." He tapped the black folder gently. "It's what you found." The room went still again. Maine's face lost color, just slightly, but enough. Margaret looked between them, confused. "What found?" she asked. Neither man answered. The judge frowned. "Mr. Freddy, what exactly are you talking about?" Freddy looked down at the folder, then back up, and said something that made even Maine stop breathing for a moment. "You think this lawsuit is about money?" He shook his head slowly. "It never was." The courtroom felt colder. Outside, rain tapped softly against the courthouse windows. Maine stood up suddenly. "This is insane. Too fast, too emotional, unlike him." Freddy watched him carefully. "You should sit down," he said calmly. Maine looked furious now, or afraid, maybe both. "You don't know what you're talking about," Maine snapped. Freddy tilted his head slightly, then asked, "Should I tell them about Denver?" Silence. Not ordinary silence, the kind that feels alive, heavy, dangerous. Maine froze. Margaret noticed. The judge noticed. Everyone noticed. "Denver?" the judge repeated. Freddy looked at Maine, waiting. Maine swallowed, hard. And then something unexpected happened. Maine smiled, slowly, not nervous, not defensive, almost relieved. Then he said quietly, "You really should have opened the folder first." Freddy's expression changed, just slightly, but enough. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Margaret frowned immediately. "What does that mean?" Maine looked toward the black folder, then back at Freddy, and said softly, "Tell them what's missing." Freddy didn't move, didn't speak. The judge's voice cut through the silence. "Mr. Freddy?" No answer. Then Freddy slowly reached for the folder. opened it, looked inside, and froze. Empty. Completely empty. No documents, no evidence, nothing. The color drained from his face. Maine leaned back in his chair, calm again, controlled again. And then he said, "You still don't know who betrayed who." Silence. The judge stood. Margaret stared. Freddie looked down at the empty folder, trying to understand something only he seemed to recognize. Then his phone vibrated. One message, unknown number. He looked at the screen and stopped breathing. The message read, "You were never the target. You were the backup plan." Freddie slowly looked up, not at Maine, not at the judge, but toward the courtroom doors, where someone had just quietly walked out, a figure in a dark coat, face unseen. Freddie stood suddenly. "Freddie?" Margaret said, but he wasn't listening anymore, because for the first time since this began, he realized something terrifying. Clark Maine might not be the mastermind. He might just be the man left behind. Freddie stood frozen. The courtroom noise disappeared, muted, distant, like the world had suddenly moved underwater. The message still glowed on his phone. "You were never the target. You were the backup plan." His pulse slowed, not from fear, from realization, because something about that silhouette felt familiar, too familiar. The dark coat, the way the figure walked, measured, calm, deliberate. Freddie turned abruptly toward the courtroom doors, already closing. "Wait!" Margaret looked confused. "Freddie?" But he was already moving, fast, faster than anyone had seen him move all trial. He pushed through the courtroom doors, empty hallway, cold silence. Then, at the far end, he saw the figure, standing still, near the courthouse exit. A woman. The hood slowly came down.